Talk to you tomorrow.
Okay. Bye-bye.
All right, so we'll talk about the particulars of that, but I mentioned this earlier. This gentleman was a kid in school, and he interviewed Steve McQueen. And Steve, this wound up being the last interview that he ever did. He didn't do it for Time or Newsweek. He did it for this kid. And that kid is an adult now, and he joins us on the program. His name is Rick Penn-Kraus. Did I pronounce that right?
Well, hold on. He's just coming in.
Set up here?
Yeah.
Okay.
He thought we were going to play a song here.
Well, I was, but I got behind because Mary was yapping and Rob was yapping, and I don't have time.
Yeah, it was their fault.
So, well, I have to blame somebody. Rick, good morning. How you doing?
Good morning. I'm doing great. How are you?
Now, how old were you when you interviewed Steve McQueen?
Gosh, I was a senior in high school, so roughly 16 or so.
Wow.
Now, why did he choose to interview with you and not Time or Newsweek or many people that would have interviewed him?
Because I was 16 years old.
And so you had reached out in what way?
Oh, it was a very unofficial way. It was after school at Hamilton High School in Los Angeles, and I walked through the quad area after school, and I see all these movie trucks, and he walks right by me. So he goes into a truck somewhere, so I went over to a bunch of guys who were on the crew, and one of them happened to be his stunt double, and I said, "Hi, what's going on?" And he said, "Steve McQueen's here filming a movie." I said, "Cool. That's great, because I really want to take his picture and interview him." And he said, "Okay, look, he never lets anyone take his picture, and he never, ever gives interviews." And I said, "Okay." And I saw him go over into the food truck, and I followed him in. It was just the two of us. I said, "Hi, I work at the high school newspaper here. Can I get an interview and take your picture?" And he goes, "Yeah, sure."
Oh, my God.
Come back at 6 o'clock tonight. We'll still be here and write up some questions, and we'll do it.
That was ballsy of you as a 16-year-old to do. I admire the moxie.
It was great. And the amazing thing about it is that I had absolutely no idea what I was going to do if I got this interview. Nothing. I mean, I didn't have questions. All I knew was there's a celebrity, I'm going to interview him. So I came back at 6 o'clock. I wrote up some questions, came back, and he's in the middle of filming upstairs in a science building. And I'm hanging out in the back behind the whole crew because I don't want him to even notice me. And he looks up and he stops the filming. He sees me. He stops the filming, and he calls me over and he says, "Okay, let's do the interview." And I sit down and
In front of everybody.
Oh yeah, the whole crew's there.
Wow.
We're in the
No pressure.
It was so funny. So I'm sitting there in the science building. I'm sitting on the stairs. He sits down on my feet and he says, "All right, go ahead." And the entire crew sits in a circle around us because they had never seen him interviewed before. Wow. So I said, "When was the last time that you got interviewed?" And he says, "Oh, like 10 years ago." Wow. So I started interviewing him. I do this interview.
Was your first question, why me?
I think it was in there somewhere about, why haven't you done interviews?
Yeah.
And he really hated the press, and he wasn't all that much of a fan of the entertainment industry either, to tell you the truth. So I asked all these questions and was writing down as fast as I could. I didn't have a tape recorder with me. There was no such thing as iPhones or anything. And I said, "Thank you very much." And he taught me my biggest lesson in journalism, which was, can I add something? And I thought, oh, my God, of course. So he takes me down the hallway away from everyone else, and he proceeds to continue the interview, just the two of us, telling me, it's important to stay in school and the importance of family and just really being serious about what's important in life. And we came back, and someone throws a black and white 8x10 headshot at me of him, and he says, "Get his autograph." So I said, "Oh, excuse me, can I get your autograph?" He goes, "Ugh, fine." So he signs it. And "Can I take your picture?" He said, "Ugh, fine." So anyways, he stands there, and I start taking pictures like crazy. And anyway, so I got the interview, and I wrote it up over the weekend, turned it into my advisor at the time, Mr. Hedges, one of my favorite teachers in journalism class in high school. And he doesn't look at it for a week.
Oh, Lord.
It's an exclusive interview. He doesn't look at it. Anyway, it got in the paper, and I started getting calls from all over the country.
It made your high school newspaper. That's good.
Yeah. I mean, tough review process. And so it got into the newspaper. And Warren Cowan, who was of Rogers and Cowan, which is the world-renowned PR agency in the world, he calls me, the head of the whole thing. He says, I've been trying to get Steve McQueen to do interviews with Time, Life, Newsweek, Rolling Stone. If he will sit down with them, he will be on the cover. They have promised he will be on the cover. He will not do it. How did you get this interview? I asked him. Anyway, so it got published, and a year later, he died. It was the last interview.
Wow. And
Now-
it was specifically because you were an amateur, because you weren't one of these sharks coming at him every second.
Oh yeah, he really respected youth, and the story that I'm telling right now, I've told a lot of people, and really what's so valuable about it that I take as valuable is that he respected youth, and he said in the interview, I said, well, look, who were your stars, the people you looked up to when you were a kid, and he said, well, this isn't for. You would remember the people that who were stars to me. And he said, yeah, but the teachers read this also. And he said, yeah, but this isn't for the teachers, it's for the kids.
Wow.
And he would go all over the world when he was filming, and he would do things for kids. And he would say, I don't want any publicity. So like he would go to South Side Chicago and be filming there, and he would tell his people, buy a whole bunch of basketballs and bring it down there to the courts out in the public parks and give it to the kids. And he would tell his agents, I don't want anyone knowing that it was me. I don't want you to publicize this at all. So he did this all over the place because he had a rough childhood. Huh. And I was fortunate enough, I had no idea at the time, but I was fortunate enough to be at the right place at the right time and to just think, this is what I want to do. And he recognized that. And, it wasn't the hardest hitting of interviews.
Well, you're a 16-year-old kid.
Yeah.
But now, first of all, before I find out the latest developments, do you still have that interview that we can put up on markinthemorning.com for people to read?
Absolutely, yeah.
Wow.
I have the actual printout, and I was just going through my parents' attic. They're getting rid of a whole bunch of stuff this week, and I found actual stuff from the interview and letters and things from more than 35 years ago. It's a great story for kids also, because a lot of what is possible for kids, they don't think is possible for them. And it's really just a matter of asking. It was just a really blast of a story. And it continues to this day, which I find there's so many funny stories about it.
Wow.
Maybe you should write a book.
Well, a book has been written. Excuse me. Marshall Terrell wrote a great book, really the definitive biography of Steve McQueen. And he found out about me as the book was on press. I got a call from him. Did you go to Hamilton High School? Are you the kid who interviewed Steve McQueen? Yeah, well, I'm stopping the presses, which I've never heard anyone say anywhere. Stop the presses. And it was probably just a mimeograph machine. But anyway, so he got that interview in. So it's been in books. I mean, I've gotten calls from Iranian entertainment magazines, Japanese television, and it's the coolest thing because he's such a cult figure.
Yeah.
Iconic.
I'll remind all of you of this. I think for me, it was his greatest role, and I watch it about once a year because it still plays so well to this day. The Great Escape. And so if you just want to remember Steve McQueen for how completely great he was, just rewatch that thing. It is so freaking good.
And there's so many great stories about him. Like when he was doing Bullet in San Francisco, there were police reports that early in the morning, like 4 o'clock in the morning, someone was tearing up the streets of San Francisco with a fastback green Mustang. And of course, he did all his driving for that movie. That was him at 4 o'clock in the morning, just ripping up the streets of San Francisco to get ready for the filming.
Yeah, it was really funny. And, he's such a cult figure that even today, when you mention Steve McQueen, there are stories that happen and people have a connection. After the book was published, and this is a big book. I mean, it's hundreds of pages. I was buying some art supplies. I was art director at a place, and I was buying art supplies. In those days, you had art supplies instead of just a computer. And so I was buying some stuff. I'm at the teller, and he's checking me out. And I give him my credit card to pay for the stuff, and he looks down and he says, "Did you interview Steve McQueen?" I said, "You have got to be kidding me. How could you possibly know? I've never met you." He says, "Oh, I'm reading this book about Steve McQueen. It's talking about this kid who got this interview. Was that you?" So funny. This happens all the time.
Good thing it was something positive and not negative, because this really followed you the rest of your life.
Yeah, if it happened today, I'd be a little concerned. Yeah. But what happened recently, as you were just alluding to, is that I wrote a piece for the Huffington Post a couple of weeks ago because it would have been Steve McQueen's 85th birthday a couple of weeks ago. So I thought this is a good anniversary to let people know about this fun story. And someone wrote a comment. one of my biggest regrets over this whole story is I wish I had a picture of myself interviewing Steve McQueen, because I had my camera there, but at the time it didn't even occur to me to even hand my camera over to someone to take a picture.
What a different generation.
It would have just been amazing to have a picture of this thing, and I've wished that I had this for more than 35 years. So as this article got publicity in the last couple of weeks, I see a Facebook comment from someone who read the story. He says, "Oh yeah, that was great. Yeah, I was there. I was taking pictures of the two of them." And he was a photographer who was on the set. His name was Dave Friedman, and he said, "I got pictures of them." So I immediately got in touch with the guy, and he said, "Yeah, I took pictures, but I don't have them because the studio has them," which at this point is probably Paramount Studios, I think. It's changed a couple of times as to who owns the movie The Hunter, and he was concerned that maybe you'd never be able to find those pictures. So if there's anyone out there, if there are any listeners out there who have connections to Paramount Studios or anything related to The Hunter who might be able to find these pictures or let me take a look, because that would mean the world to me.
Richard has earned this picture, people.
Yes, he has.
And
Because they're sitting somewhere on a shelf or on microfilm. Those pictures are there.
There's no way they got rid of those pictures within the first year of the movie being made, and there was no way they got rid of those pictures when he died a year later.
Right.
So most likely they're sitting there somewhere, and I've never seen them anywhere, but that would just be a blast.
Wow.
Rick, at the earliest convenience, please get the interview for us so we can stick it up on our website.
I will. Thank you very much. I appreciate you having me in.
Rick, thank you for coming in.
Certainly.
Andrew, would you legal ID us into the Stones, please? Stones, man!